very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha Television. You're a one-stop morning show for the biggest news stories that you might have missed during the night and also the stories that are likely to unfold during the course of the day today. Let us start with the headlines. US Defence Secretary Jim Mattis holds talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, discuss ways to combat terrorism, reaffirm resolve to further develop Indo-US strategic partnership. Major success for security forces in Jammu and Kashmir. Hizbul Mujahideen's most wanted terrorist Abdul Qayyum Najjar killed in gun battle with the security forces near LOC in Uri sector. Gorkha Janmukti Morcha withdraws indefinite strike in Darjeeling. This after centre promises to discuss all contentious issues. Union Home Secretary to hold meeting within a fortnight to discuss all the issues. US announces new sanctions against Pyongyang, blacklists North Korean banks and individuals in several countries. This as Trump reiterates that America was totally prepared for a military option. And a huge leap forward for Saudi Arabia. King Salman issues decree allowing women to drive for the first time, order to be implemented by June 2018. Our top story this morning, US Secretary of Defense James Mattis met Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday during his two-day India visit. Now, the issues discussed in the meeting are centered around enhancing cooperation between India and the US in pursuing shared priorities for peace, stability and combating terrorism. During the meeting, Prime Minister Modi appreciated the close engagement between India and the US on regional and global issues of mutual concern. Prime Minister Modi also recalled his wide-ranging, candid and fruitful discussions with US President Donald Trump during his visit to the US in the month of June. Mattis also briefed the Prime Minister on the progress in advancing the bilateral agenda and implementing the decisions taken during his visit to the United States. And before his meeting with the Prime Minister, US Defence Secretary James Mattis held talks with Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Tuesday with a focus on deepening military ties. Both the nations agreed there will be no tolerance for safe havens for terrorists. India also ruled out deploying troops in Afghanistan, but said it will expand its development activities to help the war-torn country. Here are the details.
On his maiden visit to India, US Defence Secretary James Mattis held comprehensive talks with his Indian counterpart Nirmala Sitharaman on Tuesday. The talks covered the bilateral defence partnership between both the countries. Both leaders discussed the terror safe havens in Pakistan and agreed that such sanctuaries should not be tolerated.
The situation in our neighborhood and the growing menace of cross-border terrorism were discussed in depth. There is growing convergence in the approaches of both our countries on this issue. We both recognize the importance of holding those who use terrorism as an instrument of state policy to account and to dismantle the infrastructure that support terrorism.
There can be no tolerance of terrorist safe havens. As global leaders, India and the United States resolve to work together to eradicate this scourge. In broad-ranging initiatives, we value India's leadership across the Indo-Pacific and beyond.
The Defence Minister also made India's stance on Afghanistan clear to Mattis. She said India will continue developmental assistance to Afghanistan but won't contribute troops to the war-ravaged country.
India's contribution to Afghanistan has been for a very long time and has been consistently on developmental issues. We've built dams, we've built hospitals, we shall continue doing all of them. Medical assistance is also provided by India. So India's contribution has been on these grounds and we shall expand if necessary. However, of course, we've made it very clear that there shall not be boots from India on the ground.
Supply of defence equipment to India also figured during the talks. The US Defence Secretary assured supply of cutting-edge defence technology and help India in producing defence equipments.
My goal on this trip is to promote pragmatic progress between us in our defense partnership, delivering defense interoperability aligned with priority and President Trump's direction. In the wide-ranging new relationship between our nations, security is one of the key strategic pillars.
We agreed to explore additional and specialized exercises. Cooperation in defense equipment has grown steadily over the past years. The U.S. is now a leading supplier of state-of-the-art defense equipment to India. I appreciated Secretary Mattis's willingness to share further cutting-edge platforms which would enhance India's defense preparedness to meet current and emerging threats.
Ties between India and the United States have rapidly expanded, with New Delhi buying weapons worth $15 billion over the last decade from the United States, moving away from its traditional supplier, Russia. James Mattis is the first cabinet rank official to visit India under the Trump administration. He was accorded a Guard of Honor on the South Block lawns. Mattis also paid homage at the Amar Jawan Jyoti at the India Gate. With Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Big story coming in from Jammu and Kashmir, in a major success for the security forces there. A top Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist was killed in an encounter on Tuesday in the Uri sector. The most wanted Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist Abdul Qayyum Najjar was killed by the security forces near the LOC while he was trying to sneak into the valley to take charge of the outfit. Najjar was wanted for his alleged involvement in more than 50 killings in the past 17 years, including that of policemen in Hagmang area of Sopore. Now, Najjar was a resident of Sopore and he carried 10 lakh rupees bounty on his head.
Neutralizing him would have been difficult because he was already having a huge network in Sopore, Palhalan, Patan, Handwada, in areas of Bandipur and Baramulla. So had this gentleman made entry into North Kashmir, it would have been a problem for us. So that way, it's a big relief for us, as well as big relief to those all victims of his terrorist activities.
Meanwhile, the army foiled another attack by Pakistan Border Action Team comprising of terrorists and soldiers near the line of control in Keran sector in the Kashmir Valley. Now, an army source revealed that the bat intruders were supported by nearby Pakistani posts with mortar shelling and small arms firing. The attackers were forced to retreat to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir without causing any damage on the Indian side. Now, big story coming in from West Bengal. In a major development, Gorkha Janmukti Morcha has decided to suspend its indefinite shutdown in the Darjeeling Hills from this morning. The GJM ended the strike after 104 days in response to an appeal by Home Minister Rajnath Singh. The Home Minister on Tuesday appealed to the Gorkha Janmukti Morcha to withdraw the ongoing bandh in the Darjeeling Hills. He also asked the Union Home Secretary to convene an official meeting in the Home Ministry within a fortnight to discuss all the related issues. In a statement, the Home Minister said that in a democracy, dialogue is the only way out to resolve any problem, and solutions can be found through restraint, mutual dialogue and within the legal ambit. Meanwhile, the district has returned to normalcy as shops and business establishments have reopened. The state administration has also lifted the restrictions on the use of internet services. On to some other news now. BJP President Amit Shah is on a 3-day visit to Gujarat to chalk out the strategy for the state polls later this year. During the visit, which began on Tuesday, Amit Shah is scheduled to hold meetings with the office bearers of different cells of the party, departments and the leaders involved in the election management. During the visit, Shah is also expected to hold meetings with the state BJP's team, senior party leaders, cooperative leaders and the members of the Manifesto Committee as well. And on the second day of his 2-day visit to the state of Karnataka and Gujarat, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu will today visit the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru. Vice President Naidu will address and interact with the students at the institute here. After this, the Vice President will leave for Gujarat, where he will lay the foundation stone for water and irrigation projects at Mehsana. On Tuesday, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu inaugurated a sanitation campaign in Karnataka's Gadag district, where he urged the people to work towards ending open defecation to achieve the goal of a clean India by October 2nd, 2019. Naidu pointed out that open defecation causes serious threat to the safety of women and children, and said that the number of Indians defecating in the open in rural and urban areas has reduced to 30 crore from about 60 crore in 2014.
1 लाख बच्चे हमारा देश में उनका जान जा रहा है इसी कारण से, सैनिटेशन ना होने के कारण से। इसलिए मैं चाहता हूँ डायरिया के कारण से, अन्य बीमारियों के कारण से, इसलिए मित्रों कि lack of sanitation contributes to physical and cognitive stunting in children। बच्चे ठीक तरह से वो आगे नहीं बढ़ पाएंगे। Women and girls face a serious threat to their safety। वर्ल्ड बैंक एक रिपोर्ट आया, उन्होंने कहा lack of sanitation costs over 6% of our GDP। ये वर्ल्ड बैंक का रिपोर्ट है। एवर सिंस प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी जी ने अभियान चढ़ा उस समय से देश भर में अच्छा रिस्पांस है।
Now to news on a 5G rollout in the country. The government has constituted a high-level 5G forum to approve the roadmap and action plans for the 5G rollout in India by 2020. Now, it is expected that it will create job opportunities and also digitize the economy. It is also a move that not only promises to make wireless connections blazingly fast, but will also make room for the proliferation of internet-connected smart devices.
The government is all set to introduce 5G technology in India by 2020. Stating this, Telecom Minister Manoj Sinha on Tuesday said 5G could well lead global subscriptions to the next generation technology. 5G is expected to speed up digital transformation in many industries.
लेकिन इस बार भारत 5G का अवसर खोना नहीं चाहता है, इसलिए जब दुनिया भर में स्टैंडर्ड तय किए जा रहे हैं तो भारत भी उसका हिस्सेदार बन रहा है।
The newly appointed forum, along with secretaries of telecom and science and technology, will also comprise of renowned telecom experts. It will examine early deployment of 5G in India and target 10% of the global market over the next 5 to 7 years.
इंडियन इंडस्ट्री को रिप्रेजेंट करेंगे कई CEOs ऑफ ICT इंडस्ट्री, टेलीकॉम स्टैंडर्ड डेवलपमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ इंडिया और अनेक IIT से IIT चेन्नई, IIT मुंबई, IIT दिल्ली, IIT हैदराबाद, इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ साइंस बेंगलुरु, IT इंडस्ट्री और विभिन्न स्टेक होल्डर्स को इस फोरम में रखा गया है।
India was led by 3 to 7 years in deploying 2G, 3G and 4G. The government is now going full steam with its Digital India campaign to deploy 5G. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Chief Executive of Afghanistan Abdullah Abdullah is on a visit to India beginning today. He will inaugurate the India-Afghanistan Trade and Investment Show along with the Finance Minister and the Minister of Civil Aviation. Now, during his visit, Abdullah Abdullah will also call on President Ramnath Kovind and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj will also hold a meeting with the Chief Executive of Afghanistan. Now, Abdullah's visit follows a recently concluded second meeting of the Strategic Partnership Council, which was co-chaired by Sushma Swaraj and her Afghan counterpart. News from the south of the country. The Madras High Court will hear the DMK's petition for disqualification of Tamil Nadu's Deputy Chief Minister O. Pannirselvam and 10 other MLAs. Now, the state's main opposition party had approached the apex court to disqualify the MLAs under the anti-defection law for voting against Chief Minister E. Palaniswamy's trust vote in the month of February. In a petition, DMK Chief Whip R. Sakrapani submitted that a petition was given in this regard to the Speaker P. Dhanapal on 20th of March by 6 AIA DMK MLAs who are now loyal to sideline leader TTV Dinakaran. The court is already hearing a separate petition by the DMK seeking a floor test for the Palaniswamy government in the wake of 18 MLAs loyal to Dinakaran withdrawing their support to the Chief Minister on 22nd of August. News from Varanasi now, where BHU Chief Proctor O.N. Singh has resigned from the position on Tuesday night, taking moral responsibility for the violence on the campus. His resignation has been accepted by the Vice-Chancellor. The resignation comes after National Human Rights Commission issued notice to the BHU's Vice-Chancellor and the UP government over the alleged police action against the protesting students. NHRC said that it has taken cognizance of media reports about alleged inaction on the part of BHU authorities on an eve-teasing complaint and subsequent police action on the students there. The Rights Panel issued notice to the UP Chief Secretary, the Director General of Police and the BHU's VC seeking a detailed report in 4 weeks. An inquiry has also been ordered into the violence in the BHU, the Vice-Chancellor and the Uttar Pradesh government said. Meanwhile, the Congress party has demanded a probe by the parliamentary panel into the lathi charge on women students of the university. The party has also sought the removal of a university's Vice-Chancellor. While the ruling BJP has said that the government will take steps after the committee submits its report.
All party, including BJP का भी MP हो, लेकिन सीनियर लोग हों, सारी पार्टियों के सीनियर लोग, ऑल पार्टी MPs की एक डेलीगेशन, एक कमेटी बने और इसकी जांच करे और उस जांच में जो दूध का दूध और पानी का पानी हो और ये वाइस चांसलर जो आज बैठे हुए हैं इनको तत्काल जो है नीचे उतार दिया जाए और जब तक जांच कंप्लीट नहीं हो जाती, सारे MPs की जो रिपोर्ट है वो नहीं आती और उसके ऊपर कोई कार्रवाई नहीं होती, तब तक के लिए इनको वहां चेयर पर नहीं बैठने देना चाहिए।
जांच कमेटी बैठा दी है माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी ने, उच्च स्तर की मंडल आयुक्त और ADG स्तर के अधिकारी उसकी जांच कर रहे हैं। जांच के बाद अगर कोई दोषी पाया जाता कार्रवाई होगी उसके खिलाफ, लेकिन पठन पाठन से समझौता करने के लिए बाहरी असामाजिक तत्वों को कोई अनुमति नहीं होगी।
Today is the last day for the withdrawal of candidature for bypolls to Gurdaspur Lok Sabha seat and Kerala's Vengara Assembly seat. The Gurdaspur bypoll was necessitated following the death of BJP Vinod Khanna. The bypoll has been scheduled for 11th of October and the results will be declared on 15th of October. Main contest will be between Sunil Kumar Jakar of the Congress Party, BJP's Swaran Singh Salaria, and Aam Aadmi Party's candidate Major General Suresh Khajuria. Meanwhile, the bypoll to Vengara Assembly seat will be held on 11th of October and the counting of votes will be held on 15th. The bypoll was necessitated after sitting MLAs PK Kunhalikutty of the UDF won the Malappuram Lok Sabha bypoll. On to some other news now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the chiefs of public sector banks in the national capital today. The interaction, where Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will also be present, will be done via proactive governance and timely implementation. As per reports, the Prime Minister is expected to discuss the credit growth issues with the PSU banks chiefs. The Prime Minister is also expected to talk about the Startup India program in the meeting. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on Tuesday urged corporates to take up CSR missions. He also stressed that education is a great leveler which can be provided by state or corporate assistance only.
Underscore the role of corporate charity in development. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on Tuesday said the concept is becoming acceptable in India. Reminding that corporate charity is a big thing in developed countries, Jaitley said that CSR was also met with initial resistance in India and was seen as a tax. But in the recent past, India has seen a drastic change in this regard.
It's only in the last 1 or 2 decades that this whole concept of service to society through corporate instrumentalities has begun. And I think as all changes take place, this one also was initially taken with some element of resistance.
Jaitley added that India's greatest asset is the rising aspirations of people and that education can broaden the horizon of several underdeveloped regions. Jaitley also launched the Axis Dil Se, a CSR initiative to transform over 100 schools in the most beautiful yet disadvantaged part of India, Leh and Kargil.
There are a very large number of obvious, both geographically and in the social sector, which are more challenging to reach. And I think you've reached an area where it is reasonably possible to deliver.
Despite the new law mandating a CSR spend of 2% of pre-tax profit for corporations, very few corporates have met the target. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
In sustainable livelihood cover a gamut.
And Rajya Sabha Secretary General Desh Deepak Verma on Tuesday felicitated the winners of various competitions organised during the Hindi Pakhwara in the Rajya Sabha Secretariat. Speaking on the occasion, the Secretary General said that Hindi language unites and connects the nation.
Rajya Sabha Secretary General Desh Deepak Verma on Tuesday presented awards to the winners of various competitions organised during the Hindi Pakhwara event. Prizes and certificates were awarded to winners of various categories like Hindi essay writing, noting, drafting, Hindi typing and Hindi debate. The Rajbhasha Sheet that was introduced in 1994 was awarded to the establishment and budget section for maximum work undertaken in Hindi in a year.
हिंदी जो हमारे पूरे देश के लिए एक संपर्क भाषा है, वो पूरे देश को जोड़ने का काम करती है। भाषा के अलावा जो एक बड़ा महत्व है उसका, वो सबको एक में जोड़ने का कार्य करती है और उस दृष्टि से इस तरह के समारोहों का, इस तरह के कार्यक्रमों का बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण योगदान है।
Secretary General Verma said that such programs encourage non-Hindi speakers as well.
जो कार्यक्रम हम और जो पुरस्कार हम अहिंदी भाषी क्षेत्र के लोगों के लिए इस पखवाड़े के दौरान देते हैं, उससे हिंदी के प्रति जो उनकी झिझक है, जो उनकी कुछ अरुचि है, वो अपने आप से उनको हिंदी की तरफ खींचती है और उस दृष्टि से मैं समझता हूँ कि इस तरह के कार्यक्रम का बहुत महत्व है।
14th of September is celebrated across the country as Hindi Divas, and Hindi Pakhwara is organised in the Secretariat by the Prabhag with the approval of the Secretary General. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some international news now. Tightening pressure on North Korea, the Trump administration on Tuesday announced another round of economic sanctions against Pyongyang. Washington has added 8 North Korean banks and 26 individuals linked to countries' financial networks and operating in 4 nations to its sanctions blacklist. Now, these sanctions come amid an escalating war of personal insults between the two countries' leaders.
We are totally prepared for the second option, not a preferred option. But if we take that option, it will be devastating. I can tell you that, devastating for North Korea. That's called the military option. If we have to take it, we will.
US President Donald Trump issuing a familiar warning to North Korea, saying the US is prepared to use military action if necessary, but warning that would be devastating. The strong reaction came a day after North Korea said that it was ready to defend itself by shooting down US bombers. North Korea's Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho, who was in New York early this week, had accused Trump of declaring war against his country.
He's saying things that should never, ever be said. And we're replying to those things, but it's a reply. It's not an original statement, it's a reply.
The war talk came even as reports say that the rogue nation has moved a small number of fighter jets and missiles to a base on its eastern coast to boost military readiness. However, US top military officers said that despite an escalation in rhetoric, there was no change in Pyongyang's military posture.
We haven't seen a change in the posture of North Korean forces. We watched that very carefully. We clearly have postured our forces to respond in the event of a provocation or a conflict. We also have taken all the proper measures to protect our allies, the South Koreans, the Japanese, the force, as well as Americans in the area.
Meanwhile, tightening pressure, Trump administration announced another round of economic sanctions against Pyongyang, blacklisting banks and individuals in several countries. In the latest US sanctions, the Treasury Department blacklisted 8 North Korean banks and 26 individuals who were operating in China, Russia, Libya and the UAE. The US believes tightening the economic screws will force Kim's government to the negotiating table.
We're going to continue to pursue our diplomatic efforts and hope that that's the way we'll solve this. Thank you.
The action comes as the international community continues to use economic pressure to push the communist dictatorship to end its nuclear ambitions. In the 2 recent unanimous votes, the United Nations Security Council put new sanctions on Pyongyang over Kim Jong-un's government tests of long-range ballistic missiles and a hydrogen bomb. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. News from Pakistan now, where the Anti-Corruption Court has decided to indict embattled ousted Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif on the 2nd of October in the Panama Papers scandal. The Accountability Court has also issued bailable arrest warrants for Sharif's children Hassan Hussain and Mariam, and for his son-in-law Captain Safdar. The court directed them to submit surety bonds of 1 million rupees each to secure bail. Now, during the brief hearing, Sharif informed the Accountability Court judge that his wife was unwell and that he needed to attend her in London. He was then allowed to leave. Nawaz Sharif had appeared before the court for the first time to face graft charges against him in the Panama Papers scandal a day after he returned from London. Addressing a press conference after the hearing, Nawaz Sharif declared that he was clean and he vowed to fight corruption charges. Big news coming in from Saudi Arabia. The country is easing restrictions on women driving, finally allowing almost half of its population to get behind the wheel. A royal decree has been issued that will allow women in the country to drive. And the move is in line with a series of changes that have been rippling in the Islamic kingdom since the rise of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. This may be a common sight world over. Women behind the wheel, getting on with their lives. But for Saudi Arabia, this is going to happen for the first time and therefore is a big deal. King Salman has issued a decree allowing women to drive for the first time. Government ministries are to prepare reports within 30 days and the order will be implemented by June 2018.
هذا احنا في شارع النجاح في مدينة الأحساء. توصلين فوق. طلعت مع خواتي وصلهم نقضي مشاويرهم بدون ما يتعطلون ينتظرون سواقين ينتظرون أحد يوصلهم. قلنا احنا نقضي مشاويرنا بنفسنا. ان شاء الله رايحين مشغل الامل. رايحين مشغل الامل. عندك رخصة؟ وعندي رخصة وعارفة اسوق فان شاء الله ما في اي خطورة علينا وعلى خواتنا ان شاء الله.
Under the current system, only men are allowed driving licenses. Rights groups in the kingdom have campaigned for years to allow women to drive. Some women have been imprisoned for defying the rule. But this move will ease restrictions on women and has huge implications for the Saudi economy and the women's ability to work. The Islamic kingdom recently allowed women to participate in National Day celebrations for the first time.
أنا جاية من منطقة تبوك حتى أحضر الحفلة هذه وتكون أمل لنا في أنه يكون مستقبلا نحضر حتى في المباريات في الأفراح في الأشياء اللي يعني تخصنا كشعب سعودي.
The move has been welcomed world over, with the US calling it a historic day. However, conservative voices within the country accuse the government of bending the verses of Sharia. This decree is in line with a program called Vision 2030, promoted by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to modernize Saudi society. The Crown Prince, who was appointed by his father to the position in June, is seen as a major power in the country and is expected by many to be named king before too long. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. Winds of change there. On to some sports news now. Ace Indian chess player Vishwanathan Anand has reached the 4th of the Isle of Man International Chess Tournament. Five-time world champion Anand beat German international master Luber Nicholas. Playing with white pieces, Anand outwitted his opponent, who was rated at 279 points below him, in 42 moves. Anand will now face Latvian Grandmaster Shirov Alexei. While in a separate game, world number 10 Harika Dronawali played out a draw against Swedish Grandmaster Nils Grandelius. Harika will now take on French Grandmaster Laurent Fressinet in the 4th round. And that's it from me and my team in this edition of news. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day ahead.